folks, it's me Michaela and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be talking to you about my end of year reading plans because 2023 is really getting close to being done and this year has absolutely flown by, but I do have some plans of what I want to do and accomplish before the end of the year comes. And so mainly, as it's probably not a shock, my main goal by the end of the year is to finish as many of my currently reading series as possible so that I can move into 2024 with a very low number of currently reading series, and then I can start new series without feeling guilty about it. Which is totally 100% a me problem, but it would make me feel better. And you know what, ticking things off a list and seeing that number go down is just, it feels so good. So I really want to work at getting to that point. I do have quite a large amount of series that I'm reading backlisted, whether they're ongoing or completed. It's just I'm not really reading a lot of new releases, and it's not that I don't want to be reading these books, but I also would like to have room to feel like I can read more new books eventually and not always feel so far behind with the exciting new releases of 2024. So with that said, mainly I've picked out 8 books today. I think it's 8. This is clearly not all of them. These are just the ones I physically have. But I do want to read these books that I'm about to tell you about before the end of the year, and they're all books in series. So let's start off first with some of the books where if I read them, I will be fully up to date or completed the series. First of that is this lovely book here, Inheritance by Christopher Paolini. I did talk in my fall TBR about this book, about wanting to buy it but not wanting to spend $40 on it, but Indigo was having a sale, so I did get it for myself and now I own it. This is the 4th book in the Inheritance cycle by Christopher Paolini. Now, is the 5th book, Murtagh by Christopher Paolini, just releasing now, last week or something? Yes. But I'm not necessarily counting that in my read of the series because this was published in 2011. I feel like this ends the Inheritance cycle and Murtagh is an extension of the series and not part of the series. So I'm not sure if I'm ever going to read that book, but I do want to see how this part of the Inheritance cycle concludes. So that's why I'm going to read this book and, oh my god, 850 pages of it. And then I will be done, complete, finito with the Inheritance cycle, which feels like a really big accomplishment because I feel like I've been reading these books all year. They're just really big boys, chunky books. So I then also have recently bought As Good as Dead. I'm just gonna put this out here. Who decided to put dark red writing on gray duct tape on this book and was like, yeah, everybody's gonna be able to read the title? This is not clear. Who designed this? I like the concept, but why are the words not white? Anyway, this is by Holly Jackson and it is the 3rd and final book in the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy. I have really enjoyed this series and I'm looking forward to finishing it. I am curious about if I'm actually going to like this book because I loved the 1st book, liked the 2nd book, and now I'm a little worried with this book if maybe the absurdity is going to tip over the edge for me and leave the really fun over the top feeling I liked in the first 2 books and just kind of go into, oh, I don't like this anymore. I'm hoping it's not going to be that because I like to like books that I read and I do like Holly Jackson's writing, so I still think I'll like this book, but I'm not exactly anticipating this to be a 5-star read. I think even if it's a 3-star, I'll be happy and it won't be disappointing to me. But I'm obviously wanting it to be better than that because also it's the end of a trilogy. I feel like endings are hard for a series, so I'm really curious and I don't have the highest of high hopes for this, but I still think I will like it and I still really hope that I do like it. So it's another book that if I read this, I get to take another series off of my currently reading series list. And then another book, I don't have this one with me because I've been reading this series on my iPad through Libby, but the last book in the Heroes of Olympus series by Riordan, the 5th and final book, I think it's called The Blood of Olympus. I'm planning on reading that before the end of the year, and then I'll be done with that series as well. I've been absolutely loving reading the Rick Riordan, Percy Jackson universe books, so I'm really excited to finish this series and then see what's next, because I believe there's still more series related to the same universe to read. I need to figure out which one's next. Right now I'm focusing on finishing Heroes of Olympus, and then I'll worry about what's coming next afterwards. But I find that these books are really fun to read in between some of my other genres. I like to throw one in and have a fun time with a like middle grade YA kind of age range. They're always really fast paced. I really love the characters. I really love the world of the demigods and the Greek gods and everything. I find the mythology really fun. So I'm happy to be reading more and continuing on with that. And I'm really excited, and I have high hopes for this conclusion because the 4th book, The House of Hades, was amazing. I talk about it in my October reading wrap up, but I loved that book, and it left me really wanting to read the next one. So I think I'm definitely gonna have to read The Blood of Olympus very, very soon so that I can see how the story is going to wrap up. I then also got my hands on Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is her 2nd book in her, I think it's Maple Hills, I think that's what the series is called. So this just released. If I read this, I'll be up to date in the series because obviously this is the only other book released in it. I don't know how many she plans to write in this series or if there's any more after this. But either way, if I finish reading this, I will be counting as up to date, and that kind of temporarily counts as completed in my head because I read everything I could. I'm so excited to read this one as well because I read Icebreaker. I gave that 4 stars. I thought it was really fun. The only things I had problems with in it was kind of some writing that felt a little clunky. That was my main issue. So I'm really hoping that now that writing will improve in Wildfire and maybe I won't have that issue anymore. But I'm really excited. I do find Hannah Grace's writing to be very lighthearted while still having fully fleshed out characters and plot, and I just like a good little rom-com moment, and I'm excited to read more of this. And also a new release. I finally am going to be reading a new release newly after it's been released. So that's a first for me ever. So this is also a pretty high priority read right now, and especially I'm going to have it read before the end of the year so that I will be fully up to date in this series. The next few books I'm going to talk about are actually just to be making progress in series. It's not going to be finishing them, but I do think that making progress is also very important, as I have quite a few series that have a lot of books in them to be read. So the first one I have here is Terms and Conditions by Lauren Asher. This is the 2nd in her Dreamland Billionaires trilogy. I forgot the word trilogy there for a second. So I did read the fine print. I gave it 3 stars. I liked it, but I didn't love it. However, I did overall like the characters, and I wanted to see how she continued with more love stories for the other brothers. I did pick up Terms and Conditions. I think the final author, the 3rd book in this, I think that's most people's favorite in the trilogy, but I still think I will like Terms and Conditions. Also, I just think these books are so pretty, so I wanted to own them, so now I do. Oops. I found the fine print to be fun. I found it to be lighthearted. I had a good time. It just didn't wow me. And again, I'm kind of hoping that maybe this is a later book in the series, that things feel more developed, that the writing is more developed as well so that I enjoy it more, and we'll see where it goes. I think at this point though, I am probably just going to have to read the whole series because I can't see myself stopping after reading 2 of 3. I feel just read the 3rd book. So I think I'm going to finish the series either way, especially since people say that the final offer is their favorite, or that's what I've heard. So I don't want to know too much about things because I don't like to be spoiled, because in my little brain, knowing like anything sometimes feels like a spoiler. I really love reading books blind so I can have like my own opinion on them, but I'm excited for this. I think this will be a fun another little romance read, because as I've been saying recently, I think I'm entering my romance era and I'm hopefully going to be reading more romances. I have all this space down here now to buy more romance books and put them here. I did a recent reorganization of my bookshelf because my books weren't working anymore in their other configuration. So I'll link that in case you're interested to see exactly what I changed. But yes, I think romance reading is in my future. I also have A Treacherous Curse by Deanna Raybourn. This is the third book in the Veronica Speedwell mystery series by her. I absolutely adore this series so far of what I've read. A Curious Beginning was 5 stars for me. I read it multiple times and even upon rereading it stays as a 5-star. And then I read A Perilous Undertaking recently and I gave that 4 stars. And I'm really loving following Veronica and Stoker and these mysteries. It feels very cozy, it feels very fun. I love the historical setting for these books as well. And this is definitely a series that I want to be focusing on reading a bit more in 2024, but 2024 plans I'll talk about later on in the year fully of what once I finally figure out exactly what they are. But I think this will definitely be on the list of priority readings, this series just in general. I believe that the 9th book question mark is going to be coming out next year, and I'm only have 2 of them read right now, so I have a fair amount of catching up to do that I will be working on, and this is the first step towards doing that. I also recently just finished reading The Alloy of Law by Brandon Sanderson. It's right here. I don't know why I didn't take it out, but it's on the shelf. I have just finished reading that and I found it quite enjoyable and fun. So I've decided I'm going to continue on and reading in Era 2 of Mistborn. The Alloy of Law is the first book of the series of like Era 2. I've read all of Era 1 already and I've kind of separated on my spreadsheet Era 1 and Era 2 as 2 separate series because they are 2 separate stories, because Era 2 takes place like 300 years after Era 1, so they feel very separated in my mind. But I do want to continue reading on in this series because it is fun. I do like Brandon Sanderson's writing. I find it very easily digestible fantasy writing while still being very like high fantasy. It's very well developed fantasy, but the writing is just like easy to read, and I like that. I don't always need to be reading highly complex, thought-provoking, constantly challenging your mind kind of fantasy. Don't get me wrong, I do like that, but I also sometimes just like to read some easily digestible action scene fantasy, and that's what I found the first book of Era 2 of Mistborn to be. So I do want to continue on the series, and I'm hoping to read Shadows of Self, the second book, by the end of this year. Finally, I have actually been reading more of Iona Whishaw's Lane Winslow mystery series. I actually have the first book, A Killer in King's Cove, here on my shelf, but I am continuing this series digitally because I didn't love this book, but I have now read 3 of this series, so I want to now continue on because as the series has been progressing, I've been liking it more and more, and I find the writing has been much improved from the first book and my issues with it. So I'm actually kind of excited now to keep reading this cozy mystery series. This is, like I said, a cozy mystery series. It's set in the late 1940s, post-World War II in BC in Canada, very rural, and Lane is an ex-spy from the British military, and she ends up solving murders as expected. So it's just been like a fun read for me lately, so I'm actually quite excited to continue on. This is another very long mystery series that I'm quite far behind in. I believe the 11th book in this series is going to be releasing next year, so I have a fair number to catch up on, and so I'm hoping to read It Begins in Betrayal, the 4th book, before the end of this year. And that kind of will be my conclusion of hopes to read by the end of the year. It is already getting close to mid-November, so I think reading 8 books before this year is up is already a little I think it's a little optimistic, especially since like Inheritance is a really big book. I believe Blood of Olympus is also quite a long book. I never really realize when I'm reading on my iPad if books are long or not, because like my iPad never changes width when I'm reading, obviously, because it is not a book. So sometimes I forget quite how long those Riordan books are. So both of those might take me a while to read, but I'm hoping some of the other ones are also going to be quite quick reads. So I feel like it is achievable to read all of this before the end of the year, but I'm also going to be okay if I don't read them all by the end of the year. It'd be like an ideal situation if I read all of them. I don't really think I will get to read all of them, but I'm gonna try anyway, because you know what? I like to live in my Delulu. So there we go. I have now made this lovely little pile of the books I own that I want to be reading, and obviously there's a few that I don't own yet or I'm going to be reading digitally, and that's the plans for the rest of 2023. I can't believe it's over already, but we've already been through that. I'm already talking about that. I feel everybody feels the same way. Like, this year has flown by and I don't know how I feel about that. But I would love to know what your own reading plans for the rest of the year are. Do you have certain goals you're reaching? Do you just have a few books that you want to read? What's your thinking about the last month and a half of 2023 reading wise? Let me know. If you like this video, make sure to give it a like, and if you happen to like me, consider subscribing. I'd be happy to have you. And with that, I will see you in the next one. I hope you're having a wonderful day today. Bye bye.